Hello and welcome to the Top 3. This is a new show where Rust builders compete for the title of the best. Today, you will see the 3 best bases that the show participants managed to build over the past month. And not only will you learn how to build each of the 3 bases, but I'll also show you which builders' ideas turned out to be real candy, and where they built just an absolute shit. Oh, and I don't think I mentioned this before. Right, I almost forgot the most important thing. The participants of each episode will share a prize of $150. So trust me, I will analyze the bases very earnestly. As you can see, this kind of a video has involved an immeasurable amount of time and effort, both on my part and on the part of the participants. Your support is very important to me, so I would be very grateful for any activity under this video, as well as for sharing it. Support the participants in the comments, share this video with your friends, send it to your favorite Discord channels, and just enjoy the video yourself, because I've really put a lot of effort into it. Now, we will be reviewing each of the 3 participant bases in turn. The author's crappy decisions will negatively affect the base's overall score, but the candies will significantly increase the chance of taking first place. After the review and improvement of each base, I will compare them to each other, relying on the pre-developed system of criteria. I will gradually introduce you to all the other nuances as we go through the show. Well, it's time to show you the first of the contestants. Let the battle begin. The base consists of 3 floors, and on each of them there is a shooting floor. The base is completely symmetrical, has 2 entrances, and the corridor between them is looped in a circle. It protects the main core of the base, hidden from raiders behind 3 layers of walls. The second floor is the main living area, combining convenience, security, and functionality. The third floor is entirely dedicated to shooting and combat. The roof serves as both additional support for the base's defense and a place for storing and protecting vehicles. Now, let's take a closer look at the base. The entrance doors form not the most convenient, but quite a default airlock. Going further down the corridor, we meet turrets that shoot through the entire first floor. With all the doors on the floor open, it becomes a very tough meat grinder that you can't run through without blowing up the turrets. A little higher up, a secret hold awaits us with a huge number of slots. And after opening a few more doors, we find ourselves in a kind of open core. There's a whole bunch of loot rooms in this base. 2 convenient 8-chest loot rooms in the center, 4 protected loot rooms behind the vending machines on the sides, 2 holes with barrels above the turrets. And if you think that's all the loot in the base, don't be too quick to draw conclusions, because 3 more loot rooms are hidden deeper than. You need to go up to the 3rd floor to find the 2 remaining loot rooms. Let me open up all the garages for you to give you the full picture. See that half wall? Behind it are hidden 3 large and, if desired, 2 small chests. And there is such a hidden loot room on both sides of the base. And you know, what's the catch? It's located where you would never even think. And if the entire base is upgraded to a brick skin, no one will ever find these chests. Behind the double doors on the 3rd floor are the usual shooting peaks, and the author has placed the main combat rooms on the sides of the base. In the center of the 3rd floor stands the main battery, and on the sides, right above the hidden loot rooms, are the exits to the roof. There are 2 of them, just like everything else in this base. There is a turret above each exit, as well as a rather simple shooting single door for roof control. On the roof itself, there are many quite default convenient peaks. And all that's left for us is to go down to the main bunker. It's hidden behind this vending machine standing on the 2nd floor. To remove it, you need to spawn on a sleeping bag and break the twig. It can't be burned with a Molotov, which is undoubtedly a great advantage of any bunker. Next, we have a garage door, 2 armored doors, and the final double armored door. It might seem like the room tour could end here, but in this base, in addition to everything else, there is also a hidden kill bunker with 4 chests. After the room tour of this base, we can immediately highlight several cool features, each of which I'm ready to call a candy. Secret loot rooms in the shooting floor, main loot rooms behind the vending machines, an interesting and rather rare bunker that can't be burned, 2 entrances and 2 exits from the base. However, even though this base made it into the video, believe me, there's plenty of shit in it too. Let's go through it step by step. We haven't even entered the base yet, and there are some questions already. Where are the gun traps? Not only do we have this shitty airlock here, which requires constantly keeping one of the doors open, but the perfect spot for gun trap is simply concreted over without any reason. If the author had destroyed this ceiling and hung 2 gun trap here, base would be much more pleasant, but in the current version, the entrance to the base is shit. Let's move on. The turrets on the first floor. The idea is great, I won't argue, but the implementation is also complete shit. Not only can these turrets be easily taken out from the street with incendiary, any player who just stands next to your base in AFK mode will completely disable the turrets in a couple of minutes. And jumping onto this little ledge, while being on the sloping roof and being visible from the outside the whole time, it's just disgusting. But I have even more questions about the combat rooms in this base. Essentially, there are only 2 of them for the entire base, and they also serve as the main bedrooms, since there are no other beds in here. And this raises the following question. Why the hell build 9 loot rooms in the base if both beds can be punched with spears right from the outside? Of course, they should have replaced 2 loot rooms with proper protected bedrooms, instead of cramming 1,000 chests into the base for no reason. In short, shit plus shit. What else bothers me is the complete lack of furnaces in the base. I won't argue. Theoretically, there's plenty of space inside the base to place them anywhere, but in the author's version of the base, they're simply not standing anywhere. I consider the bases in the form in which they were submitted for review, so forgetting the furnaces resulted in shit. The need to mess around with the bunker also remains questionable, to be honest. The bunker is certainly sturdy, fresh, and cool, but I never understood why it's here in this base. Because behind it, there are another 4 doors, 3 of which are armored. Any route bypassing the bunker turns out to be significantly cheaper than blowing up this vending machine. In short, the bunker itself is a candy, but its location is shit. Next, I have a question about these peaks. Logically, they are needed to shoot down a helicopter. But how can they be used for that? You spot such a helicopter, give it a couple of hits, and start running through half the floor to the next window. Or imagine, you've spotted someone under your base. You hit them, and then it's a 100-meter dash to the nearest window. This makes even less sense now that the helicopter has started spinning around the target like a bitch. In short, the variety of shooting peaks in the base is cool, but in practice, changing the shooting position turns out to be very long and inconvenient. I can't call the shooting floor shit, but it's not a candy either. And what is definitely shit is the roof defense. You go out onto the roof, and bam! You get hit on the head from somewhere. I'm talking about this little gap that is essentially a one-way shooting lane for raiders. And the best part is that this roof is absolutely safe for enemies. All because of the stupid turrets that can only see with one eye, cause their left side is blocked by the doors. The final piece of shit in the coffin of this base is its gaps. Because to create them, you need to devote hundreds of thousands of squares to each side. What a shit! Yes, and you thought I was going to be cracking jokes here? We have competition here, $150 on the line. Well, now it's time for my favorite part. It's time to turn shit into candy. I tinkered for a couple of hours, and I'm ready to present you with my version of this base. Let me show you in more detail what I've cooked up here. I've already talked about the gun trap above the airlock. There's nothing special about that. We remove this layer of drywall from the top and mount this incredible technological achievement with a couple of screws. What's more interesting is the location of the turrets, which has changed dramatically. Now they shoot not only inside the base, but also cover the outside. At the same time, in both the author's version of the base and mine, it will be impossible to soft-side anything from the outside, so the nakeds won't want to bait the turrets for weapons. Moreover, now in this base, you don't need to divert any guts from Twig. The inconvenient climb to the second floor with crooked jumps has also sunk into oblivion. Now we have comfortable hatches on each side. I replaced 2 of the 4 loot rooms with full-fledged bedrooms with lockers so that your main spawn points can't be punched with spears before the raid. And the open core has also changed quite a bit. First of all, it is now also covered by 2 turrets. Secondly, I decided to get rid of the loot rooms behind the glass completely. The first reason is that they take up a lot of useful space, And the second is that there is no point in storing resources in them while you're offline, since in addition to them, the base has 2 more protected loot rooms, an armored main, and a kill bunker. I moved the chests out of these loot rooms to the outside and used the space from the loot rooms for 2 furnaces and an upgrade of the combat rooms. With the furnaces, it's simple. You can close them with either windows or a door. And I'll tell you a little more about the new combat rooms later. There are no changes to the main bunker area. The only thing is, I didn't close off the bunker. In my opinion, it makes sense only at the end of the wipe, when you already have more than enough HQM and gears. Or if you don't have the armored door blueprint, then you can lock yourself in the bunker at night. Now we go upstairs. Here I removed the ceiling so as not to bump the head on it unnecessarily. In general, I made the entire floor much more open. Now there are special shooting peaks for shooting the helicopter on the sides. It's quite open, but the main feature is that the helicopter can't set it on fire. The fire just rolls down. Of course, if you often shoot down the helicopter, you need to upgrade it to metal. Fortunately, all these blocks belong to external TCs, so servicing them will be cheaper. If a helicopter shooting position is not needed, there is such an alternative. Here you have default gaps under the base and long-range shooting with a wide view. You can safely leave such a variation in stone. Next, let's look at the main combat rooms. There are also some new features here. First, there is a little more space, and now you can shoot forward after removing the window. And secondly, the lockers are now much more hidden and better protected. The roof access has also changed. Now it is carried out through hatches, and in such a way that when the hatches open, an airlock is formed, so that even if your teammate is mad, no one will be able to go deep. On the roof itself, the turrets moved higher up, and in their place there are now 2 additional rooms with beds and lockers. The windows, of course, can be replaced with a solid wall, but it's better to make a little gap using a locker, so you can discreetly peek at your guests. I think in this version, the base looks much more advantageous. And most importantly, you can already build it in this wipe, since the link to the full construction video is already available on my Patreon page. Feel free to subscribe and help me grow, but don't rush to choose, because there are still 2 more cool bases ahead, each of which can easily become your main base for this wipe. I still have to evaluate the bases by criteria, but for that I need to look at the other 2 participants of the episode, so that the evaluation is justified and fair. Your attention, the second base, the oilman's base. Let's go inside and take a look at all the interesting details of the base. Behind the default airlock, we are immediately greeted by a small core, which compactly houses 2 loot rooms behind windows, 2 lockers also behind windows, 3 furnaces serving as a way to the 3rd floor, and the candy that got this base into the video. A turret behind the ramp. Such a placement of the turret, not only can it be a big surprise, but it also controls 2 floors at once. On the 3rd floor, we have 3 electrical furnaces, another locker behind glass, and on the side are 2 combat positions, right in front of a turret. Opening both simultaneously creates an airlock without blocking the turret. If desired, you can also remove the window from the inside of the bedroom and suddenly hit someone. There is also a loot room with a hidden vending machine on the 3rd floor. Not a revolutionary thing, and those who know how to do it already know how to unlock such loot rooms cheaply. But it's still nice to see such solutions neatly integrated into the bases. Of course, the ramp on the 2nd floor that the turret uses, we can also use ourselves. And if you need to shoot on the 4th floor, there is also such an option in the base. For this, we have a dead end with an armored door. The awesome shooting peek through the hatch is definitely a candy. But the gun trap is complete shit, because it doesn't shoot through the ramp. Citizens, check your homes before sending them out. Let's go upstairs. Here we have lockers again, this time without glass, and for some reason there is no furniture at all. Behind the 3 regular doors are 3 more regular doors. They all lead to a single shooting floor. Really weird one. It consists of 50% open doors. I can't say that it's inconvenient or bad, but I don't see any special advantages to such a design either. It's nice that there's an opportunity to shoot right under the base. The exit to the roof in the base is simple, and the roof itself at first doesn't evoke any emotions, until you notice these ultra sneaky turrets. Yes, an MLRS will take them down, but in this case, The MLRS will take down half the base here, which is normal for a base at this cost. But the fact that you can't break the turrets from a combat heli, that they shoot at you even on approach, and that you can't even notice them before the raid, that's definitely a candy. There is also a default bunker with a vending machine on the roof, which can be opened by attaching a roof to the wall. In a base without multi-TC, you won't even dare to call this a candy. And finally, we can go down to the main area. Except for the huge consumption of HQM, there's nothing to look at. We have an option to break the shelf in from off the TC, lock ourselves in the armored cube, and drop a sleeping bag underneath. Well, thank you. Now let's turn a critical eye to things and talk about the shit. First of all, the entrance to the base. There is only one here, and that's very sad. Or rather, it's shit, especially considering that there are no quick drops from the shooting floor. Moreover, under this roof, you can hide in such a way that you won't be seen either from the shooting floor or when leaving the base. The second point that bothers me is the number of lockers. Whether the author considers them as loot rooms or just really likes to use lockers. But there's a feeling that there are more of them in this base than chests. The ascent to the third floor, jumping from furnaces, hitting your head on the gun trap, all in a half crouch and hastily. Let's say, how many times I can't jump up to this ceiling right now, that's how much shit this base will get. Okay, I'll just add one shit. On the third floor, I generally like everything. The fact that the edges of the beds stick out and can be punched, of course, is not good, but they are protected by a turret and you can't shove the beds inside anyway. But the fourth floor is shitty from head to toe. A huge number of single inconvenient doors in narrow passages. This ultra freaky external circuit with 20 doors, but the worst thing is that it is not looped. If you shoot at the enemy here and he runs left behind the wall, then you will have to go around the entire base to get to the other side of the shooting floor. Double shit. In such situations, the roof usually solves all the problems. But in this base, unfortunately, it is also shit. I mean, in general, the roof is just a roof, but why the hell are all these structures here? I still haven't figured out, because shooting from them only becomes more difficult. And let's go to the biggest curse of this base, its main core. I have a lot of questions about everything here, but the main one concerns the balance of protection. Essentially, this entire base can be raided to the TC for 11 rockets. 11, Carl. Yes, no doubt. Since the base made it into this video, it's rather good in itself. And the chance to raid it so cheaply is not as great, but it still exists, and for that I'm ready to immediately throw 3 shits into the fan. We enter through the doors. Just skip the turret, because its firing angle is tiny. Blow up further, and that's it. For 11 rockets and a couple of explosives, we're in the TC room. Yes, the traps will give us a hard time, but 11 rockets for fuck's sake. Shit. This base needs to be saved. It has too many cool solutions for them to drown in crooked defense. Your attention, my vision of the oilman's base. I've moved the entrance a bit to the side, so it's harder to hide under the roof. Behind the second door, there is now a beautiful dream catcher, and the locker accordingly has moved to the left. To be honest, I'm not sure it makes sense to close it with glass at all. Perhaps it will be more practical to just close it with a door. In the place where the entrance to the main bunker was before, there is now a second loot room with a little gun trappee. The beds remained in the same place, but the descent has moved a bit. There is a second locker here, and at the bottom, behind several garages, the familiar main area awaits us. The gun trap on the ceiling, of course, can be left as in the author's version. I've just forgot about them. In the main core, there are more chests, more furnaces, and more space. And most importantly, now to break through to the TC, you need to break through at least 8 doors. Of course, I didn't remove the ability to roll up in a cube. The ascent upstairs has become more convenient in every way since the electrical furnaces have moved down. If 5 regular furnaces in the base are not enough, there are separate protected sulfur furnaces behind the window. If desired, they can be connected to the main chests with a pipe, or just put a battery there. On the third floor, the changes are minimal, except that a couple more chests have been added, but I completely redesigned the fourth floor. Here, we have a fork right away. The left door leads to the shooting floor, which I'll show you in a bit, and the right door leads to an open corridor. Here we have a full-fledged loot room in case of a raid from below, as well as a room for a retake. You can't put beds in it, but even a sleeping bag with a locker can sometimes change the raid. And the second exit to the shooting floor, let's take a look at it. As you can see, it has firstly become circular. It has become much more spacious here. There are now shooting peaks on top for shooting a helicopter down, and from below we can also control the entire area under the base. There is also a quick drop down through the hatches. If desired, you can also sneak into the base through them, bypassing the main entrance. I haven't changed the roof much. It has become more spacious because I've moved all these roof clutter further from the center of the base. Now there will be enough space here even for a couple of transport helis. Now, if you look at this base from the outside, it has clearly become less stubby and strange looking. The video of full construction of this base with all the explanations will also be available by link in the description of this video. At first glance, this base may seem simple and boring, even kind of small. And yet, the shooting peaks in this base are such that you literally won't be able to find a single spot near the base that would become a dead zone. The entrance to the base is made through the second floor. One of the entrances is a fake one, which you can find out by looking through the window. The second floor is a fairly spacious common room, where one wing has bedrooms with lockers and furnaces, and the other has large, convenient loot rooms. In the center stands a workbench and a turret, and you can place a second one opposite it if you wish. Under the turret, there's a descent down through the furnaces and the simplest main cube. On the third floor, there's another shelf for the turret, a bedroom with closed lockers and a battery. On the sides we have exits to a convenient circular shooting floor. Although I didn't really understand the glass on the windows, it would be much more practical to make these windows shootable using embrasures. For the shooting floor, there are hatches leading directly to the exit, and right next to them we also have hatches leading to the roof. I really like the roof of this base, it's kind of cozy, you know. There are convenient shooting windows, hidden turrets, and a couple of beds. I'm ready to give candy to this base for the convenient layout. The base is very logical and convenient to use. Special thanks for the great spacious loot rooms located next to the workbench. It's cool that the combat rooms are also well protected and don't get taken out for 4 rockets, or even 4 spears, like in the first base. The shooting floor is good and convenient, and the quick descents are just great. I also give a candy for these shooting positions. Yes, not new, but very good. But still, this base is far from perfect. I have a lot of questions about its roof. The wind turbines are standing very low, at the level of the 4th floor, and if the low placement of them in the first base was due to the fact that there were ideal places for turbines, in this base, these places are made artificially, specifically for the wind turbines. As a result, instead of 100 rust watts, we get only about 60. There are several turrets and electrical furnaces in the base. In short, the placement of wind turbines is shit. And you know another joke about these wind turbines? If they get destroyed, you can't put new ones in their place. And why is that? Because the roofs nearby are in the way. Well, at least they don't cut the airflow. Double shit! The turrets are also shit. Yes, they're well hidden, and the viewing angles are strong, but not strong enough. As a result, we have this situation, when the turret is knocked out with a bow without the need to bait it, and even in the dead zone of another turret. And it would be okay if the problem was only in knocking out the turrets, but during a raid, with one person sitting here, the owner of the base will no longer be able to get out onto the roof, because they will be cut down while still climbing through the hatch. Beds, hatches, turrets, everything is controlled from one point, pure gold. And given that the entire shooting floor is closed off with glass, control of the roof allows you to calmly spit rockets at the base from a raid tower, without receiving any return fire at all. The glass is also shit. I praised the combat in the base, it's really well placed, but the problem is in this. Yes, the garage door is no good. Ideally, you need to put double armor here, or at least a double regular door. And the last piece of shit in this base I'll give for the lack of at least some kind of bunker. In the first one, we had an interesting bunker on the vending machine. In the second, the ability to lock down in a cube. Here, there's absolutely nothing, although it's just begging for it. There were the fewest changes in this base, and most of them turned out to be under the hood. On the second floor, the furnaces moved to the main corridor, and chests took their place. It's not like it's absolutely necessary, but I think firstly, it's more convenient when the electrical furnaces are nearby, and secondly, during a raid, you sometimes have to distribute the loot around the base so that you can at least continue the defense and build up. But in the author's version of the base, it turns out that if the raider breaks through to the main loot rooms, then, except for a couple of lockers and the roof, there is no more loot rooms in the base for defense. The most important thing that appeared in the base is a stable bunker. Yes, the simplest one. Yes, primitive and hackneyed. Yes, it only closes from the outside and opens only from the inside. But this is plus 15 rockets to the raid in exchange for 7 HQM. And if there is an opportunity to get such additional protection in the base, I don't see a single reason not to do it. The third floor remained completely unchanged, except for the armored double door in the bedroom and embrasures instead of glass. But the roof had to be significantly reworked. The turrets are now standing on the top shelf, and their viewing angle has become higher. To make them inconvenient to break from a helicopter, I raised another layer of roofs. The wind turbines, accordingly, were also raised 2 floors up. And in the center, you can now place SAM site if you wish. The roofs protect the SAM site from below, and the wind turbines stand high enough not to collect all the rockets. Whether to put air defense or not is a purely individual choice. In my opinion, it won't get any worse. As for the previous 2 bases, a link to the full construction with an explanation of the nuances awaits you in the description. The initial assessment and upgrade of the bases are behind us. The most important thing remains. It's time to compare the bases of today's contestants and distribute them on the top 3 podium. For this show, I have developed a special table of criteria. In each of them, I look at the key characteristics of each of the bases. Of course, we take into account the bases before my surgical intervention. The first criteria is the overall protection of the base. It includes the protection of the loot rooms, the TC, the presence of multi-TC, various stashes, and other nuances. The weakest of the 3 bases today, in terms of protection, was the second contestant. 11 rockets to the TC through the doors. This is a very low price for a base of such size. And the most protected, in my opinion, is contestant number 1. Numerous loot rooms protected by vending machines, discrete barrels, and an unusual bunker give this base an additional candy. The second criteria is the cost of building the base. This takes into account the average base consumption percentage, the cost of closing bunkers if there are any, the required components and blueprints. Despite the low protection, the oilman's base also turned out to be the most expensive to build and upkeep in terms of resources. Its consumption percentage is the highest, and it consumed the most resources. However, I will also single out the first base as an outsider, since for its construction you need a crazy number of doors of all types. It's expensive to close the bunker, and you need a ton of gears for the vending machines. The third base, however, is not far behind its competitors, so no one of the 3 bases will get a candy for these criteria. The third criteria is the complexity of construction. It includes the ability to build the base in stages, the need to allocate additional foundations, and place furniture in a certain sequence. The outsider here is definitely the first base, due to its shitty pixel gap, the difficulties of installing ramps, due to a conflict with the shelves in the loot rooms. The base itself is quite difficult to remember, due to its composite structure. In short, the construction process of this base is still shit. Both other bases are built relatively simply, are easy to remember, and their construction can be easily divided into stages. Capacity. This criteria evaluates how much useful stuff can be crammed into each of the bases, from the basic number of loot rooms and bedrooms, to the ability to place additional mixing tables and gun traps. The most capacious of all was base number 1, and although I wouldn't call it spacious, it is indeed very large. It has a ton of loot rooms that can be converted into bedrooms if desired, as I did, as well as quite a few free corridors that can be filled with any necessary crap. I also want to highlight the third base. Yes, it is significantly smaller, since almost the entire first floor is built up with buffers. But it is very comfortable in terms of room size and each floor in it feels like one big open core. And the second base, unfortunately, turned out to be the most cramped of all, and it is difficult to even place a minimum of furniture in it. Not to mention mixing tables and other desires. The penultimate criteria is passive defense. This is how the base is able to fend off a raid while you're sleeping soundly. And here, the Oilman's base takes the undisputed first place. A bunch of gun traps on every floor and an amazing turret will definitely make the raider nervous if they go through the doors. And if they hit the TC directly, well, that won't be the best investment of 24 rockets. I'll put the other two bases on the same level, rating it as decent, but not a candy. And active defense. This is an assessment of the shooting floor, combat rooms, the ability to retake the main core, protection from going deep, and other crazy stuff. This criteria was the most difficult for me, because the bases are really very different, and it's not easy to compare them. I can't call the last base the most protected due to its vulnerable roof and these freaking windows around the shooting floor. In the second base, despite the cool peaks between the floors, the shooting floor is rather gloomy and inconvenient, and there is only one entrance. And the third base is famous for its excellent main bedrooms that can be punched with a spear. I'll leave all three bases with a neutral rating, because in each of them I see obvious efforts and attempts by the authors to make it suitable for defense against an online raid, but each base have issues. Now we have the final comparative table, and combining all the positive and negative assessments, we can draw a general conclusion. But how, Woodcock? If there are more candies in the base, but also more shit, does that mean it's good or bad? Fortunately, I have an answer to this question. Deciding which base is worthy of first place today will not be me. Instead, it will be the first neural network in Rust. Meet Jimmy. As you see, all three bases are already waiting for their score. It will appear on the counter above and will represent a 3-digit number. The higher this number, the higher the score. And now we just need to launch Jimmy and wait for him to be ready to draw the conclusion of today's episode. During the time Jimmy is calculating, you can put a like on this video and also speculate in the comments which of the bases will take first place today. But remember that you are watching a pilot episode, and in subsequent episodes, the level of the participants' bases will significantly increase. Such things as the absence of furnaces in the base or a glazed shooting floor. These are also features of the pilot episode, since the participants knew the rules of the show quite approximately. So, Jimmy is ready to show us the results. According to the detailed analysis, the bronze medal in this month is held by Profi and his Oilman's base, scoring a total of 18 points and earning $25. The second place today is held by Laura Green with the Morph base, scoring 55 points in the overall ranking. This base brought the author a total of $50. And the winner of the first episode of Top 3 is Pavel Uzijom's 360 Peaks Kilobase, scoring 153 points in the ranking, and honestly earning $75. The gap in points turned out to be surprisingly large, but who am I to argue with the machine? All that remains is to congratulate the winner. This format was made possible exclusively thanks to my subscribers on Patreon. Your subscription allows me to pay for the bases of the winners, and for you it opens access to all videos of the construction of the reviewed bases. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next episode.